KFUG Community Radio, 122 the time. Paul Critz with you. We are on the record. Amanda Dockter, say something.
Something.
There you go. Perfect. You're along with us today as well. And we are joined live in the studio, Sheryl Steinruck, coming down from Smith River and the Tolowa Dee-Ni and the education department. Now, are you the head of the education department?
Yes, I am the director.
The director. Okay, maybe that's
of
more.
the Department of Education for Tolowa Dee-Ni Nation, and have held this position about 2 years now.
Wow. So we were talking and kind of getting all wrapped up in things before coming on the mic, and we'll jump all into that. Let's just, how are you doing? How are things going with the family and with all the Steinrucks and everybody around?
Well, you know, the Steinrucks have a long line of, including our moms and grandparents, a long line of athletes. And so we have people who are making all-star teams, doing well in all their sports. One of the things I just recently started with our grandchildren was a book reading program.
Awesome.
I've been trying to find a book so we could have a club. We come together every Sunday for family dinner. So that's the time we can come together, have read a chapter, come back and talk about it.
Oh, wow.
And so the book I found, and come to find out our son J-Tuck had already gotten the book. So he was, because we have coaches too, people who coach, you know, and it's a real art to teach the fundamentals so that they're ready to go out there and really do the hard work and let them develop their own talent at their own pace. So this book has to do with mental toughness.
Ooh.
And so this man by Troy Horn and his son Moses have put together this package of a parent's guide and the book that goes to the youth on their reading level that his son helped him do. And they have a podcast, they have a blog, they have all kinds of things that we can then get other resources about how to go about developing mental toughness.
What kind of mental toughness are you talking
Mental toughness is, say, for example, when you're in a wrestling match, you are just one-on-one. You cannot blame it on your teammate that if you got pinned or pinned someone. It's your own gumption that you're doing it. So that means that you have to have a good sport. You have to be a good sport. You have to be able to win gracefully, like not brag and, oh, I'm the best, you know. So it's this whole thing of how do you handle pressure?
Wow.
And so it's this really cool book. And so we're reading the chapters at a time, coming together. And then what I have is some rewards and incentives that I purchased some time ago. So I'm having them put their name in a hat. You know, like if they've read the chapter, if they've been coming every time, however many, they throw it in and they can pull out their name. That's more of a lottery. And then they can choose from the pile.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever they might like. Frisbees, footballs, basketballs, soccer balls, you know, whatever. So that's why I kind of came up with that idea, because our grandchildren now, the youngest one, he's 8.
Oh, wow.
And they go up to 14.
How many grandkids get around you on Sunday?
Well, I think it's about 6.
Okay, you think, yeah, it's best to say. Does it seem like more sometimes?
Well, the energy.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is that each one of them has their own personality, as everyone does. And so some people learn this way, some people learn that way. And plus, I also want to bring in the coaches in the room, J-Tuck, Dawn, Rex, Santaye, everyone who has coached sometime in their life. And like Stine now, she's 16. She's been going up to Brookings and doing the reffing up there.
Oh, okay.
With the youth basketball and whatnot. So, I mean, we're starting that whole next generation of leadership. And that's what I look at trying to develop in our grandchildren. So, because we come from a very athletic background, being Dee-Ni, everything before in the olden days was walk or nothing, or paddle.
Right.
And so, you know, I think our bodies are kind of meant for that. So anyway, I'm trying to pull that together. So that's on the family front.
Wow, it's wonderful hearing like Guilish and the other names, the names that I remember from all the team pictures and the family pictures with the photique and everything. That's fantastic. So what is your background personally?
Well, I'm an elder. I am the first enrolled Dee-Ni woman to get my 111 on my chin.
Oh, wow, really?
And that was back in 06, October of 06. Can't believe it's been that long ago. But one of the things historically that when all of us baby boomers were younger, my mom got this idea that my parents were very progressively minded and forward thinking all the time. And so my mom said, let's get together with her sisters and nieces and said, we better pull these baby boomers together and start teaching them something. They're not going to know anything.
Right.
So this was in the 60s.
Wow.
And so they pulled us all together and we started at the Gus Chu Hall, which is there in Smith River. And the Delaware Indian Welfare Association had that building given to them from the Methodist church.
Okay.
It had been an outcrop from the town of Smith River where they had a Methodist, but the white people in Smith River didn't want to have church with the Indians. So they built another church, which our community built. You know, so we
Was that the one in Smith River that burned down?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Do you know where our headquarters are now? It's called Mouth of Smith River Road. Well, it's that red-colored building on the left as you're going up to Ocean View.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I do know that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where we met when I was a kid. And at that time, it was filled with all the elders who were alive then in the 60s. And there was quite a few. So they got together with us, and every Saturday we met. And they would teach us our culture, our language, our history, tell stories. We taught the Natosh there. And that's where we first learned the lineup and things like that. And I can remember this one time, I have to tell this story. I'm a storyteller, so you guys have to turn me off. But
that's why radio is here.
And I was about 12. And we were working very hard. And back in the day, the teachers were much more stricter than now. You couldn't cut up. You had to pay attention. If you wanted to do this, you did it. If you don't, there's the door, kind of thing. You know, it was you either participate or don't.
Right.
And we're going to teach you how to do this right. Okay, so learn. And so we were practicing, and we got to a dress rehearsal. We actually got to put the dance stuff on and stand in line. And we were up there, and when you're in a semicircle, it's how our Natosh is. It's man, woman, boy, girl. And there's a fire out in the middle. If we were in the dance house, that would be right in the middle here, and we'd be back. And then you have the singers on each side. And so the singers were there, and then they'd start a song, and then we would sing or dance while they sang. And with Tolowa Dee-Ni, women can come out front, whereas Hoopa Yurok, they don't come out front. The women stand in line like with the brush dance. And it's a very different purpose too. For like a brush dance is a cure a sick child. White deerskin dance is for another reason. All those things. Well, at the Natosh, we have Earth renewal ceremony too that we learned about, and that's the winter solstice, and that commemorates the end of one year, the beginning of the next. And so this one we were doing, you can have a Natosh even for a wedding. You can have a Natosh just because your baby was born. You can have a Natosh when your daughter does the flower dance. So you can have them for other occasions there, and as well as say the Earth renewal ceremony or the equinoxes. We would do things on the summer solstice, the equinoxes. So there was always that time of season of when you do things.
Right.
And so anyway, we were practicing, and we were all baby boomers, and we were working really hard and keeping rhythm and doing what we're supposed to be doing. And you're not supposed to be looking up. You're supposed to be paying attention to what you're doing. And I looked up, and I saw all the elders just crying.
Oh.
They were weeping. And I went, oh man, I thought it was we're so bad we made it cry.
Oh no.
Man, we're going to catch hell when we get done doing this. And so then when the dance ended, we found out the reason why they were crying was because it touched their hearts.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We had our dance stuff confiscated. Our religion was against the law by the federal government. We were not allowed to practice. We're not allowed to speak our language. We're not allowed to do a lot of things. So when these elders saw the youth carrying it forward, they knew it wasn't going to die.
Wow. Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
right then and there in my heart, that's when I knew. When you get a feeling that you're doing something you should be doing, it should fill your whole body and your whole mind and soul. And that's what happened.
Wow.
And I was 12 years old.
Oh my God.
And so from that, so we've always been exposed to this our whole lives. And then when my mom was a community development person for Intertribal Council of California, which is a statewide organization for Indian tribes, and she was the representative for Area 1, which is our area, Delaware County and Humboldt County and whatever. And so she was always going to these meetings, so she would hook up with other women. And these were the catalysts of the forerunners of our United Health Services today.
Okay.
Our Indian Teacher Education Project at Humboldt State. They were the forerunners of these programs we have today, because they were the movers and shakers. The men were off working every day. They couldn't go places, so it was up to the women to kind of do it. So there were these progressive women all around Indian country that came together and worked in these ad hoc committees to start these things. So she was in Humboldt State at the time working with the ITEP program, getting that off the ground. And they had a monthly board meeting. that they would have to come together with the students who were enrolled in that program at that time. Well, she hooked up with a man by the name of Tom Parsons. And he was the director of the community development program there at Humboldt during that time. And he had been asked from the Indian community to help with revitalization of their languages. So he came across this uniform alphabet, which was used for weather across the world, because we have different languages, we have different spelling of words and all that, so it was never uniform. So the Weather Bureau came up with this uniform alphabet that each symbol had its own sound. So you could So then you could go ahead and string together a bunch of letters and actually replicate that language that you're trying to pronounce, read, or whatever. So we started doing that. Tom started working with the Hupa, Karuk, Yurok, and Tolowa. And so he came every Wednesday when I was in the 8th grade. My mom would come to Redwood School and pick up my brother Lauren and I, who was in the 6th grade, take us to the high school every Wednesday, and we would meet with the elders alive at that time and all the other kids that were brought in at that time to learn the stories, the history, and that's when our language was first being written. And so Tom would come in, and my Aunt Betty, she's my cousin, but we call her Auntie Betty, she would write down everything. She took meticulous notes, excellent handwriting. You could know her, it was her handwriting no matter how many years later you looked at it. Not mine. And so so then he would record all this, and then that's when we started, and Lauren and Bernice Humphrey and that whole group got the first dictionaries that we have.
Oh, nice.
And then, so in that time frame, though, is when we were taught information about who we are as a people. And there was a time when I was 16 years old. It was during the I call it a social revolution in America. The Vietnam War was going full speed ahead. It was anti-establishment. There were riots everywhere. Kent State, all this thing was happening. A lot of turmoil in our society. And that was also during the Civil Rights Movement and the American Indian Movement.
Right.
So as Cheryl's a 16-year-old, and which not knows 16-year-old wants to listen to their parents generally. Of course, I didn't. And it just fit the mold of a teenager in America, right? And so anyway, I had gotten to the point where I had learned the actual history of our people, and I became angry.
Yeah.
Because the massacres that we had here are the second largest recorded massacres in American history behind the Pequot War.
Yep.
We have them, so much documentation from the newsletter articles, from everything in the state of California that showed when we pre-contact, we had up to 10,000 people living in this area within our Aboriginal territory.
Oh my gosh.
By the turn of the century, there was 131 on the census rolls.
Oh my gosh.
So we were diminished. So when I heard these stories being told about different things, I just began to hate white people. And it's a normal human reaction when you learn something. So our family, my mom and dad, we used to have dinner, and you had to sit down, and the first question they would ask you was, "What'd you learn today?" So depending upon the conversation, we could have dinner take 45 minutes to 2 hours. And at that time is when we learned the values from our parents of basically who we are today. And so they knew I had this attitude because I'd learned this stuff. And I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was just hateful because I just couldn't believe how they could do it. And I just wanted, and so this whole idea of racism really came to the forefront for me at that time, realizing, because we knew it was different. When we stepped on that school bus to go to Redwood School, which is 3 miles away, but it took us an hour in the morning, an hour at night to get home, then, we stepped into another world. We lived in two worlds, and we knew that. But when I was 16, it all hit home, like, phew. So my dad said one time, he goes, "Okay, Sheryl, we're going to have one more talk," because we always talked. He said, "I want you to listen to me." And he said, "Whatever you decide from our conversation, I will support you." Because our parents allowed us to question authority. They taught us to. And they taught us to have a mechanism to make decisions, think things through. What's the consequence, positive or negative? We were taught this from the time we were little.
Wow.
And so he said, "Okay, we'll have this one more talk." So we sat down, and I begrudgingly did, because I'm a snot-nosed 16-year-old.
You know everything already.
Yeah, what are these old folks thinking? And so we sat down, and he goes, "Okay, you have a right to hate white people. What the white people did to your family and your people is wrong." Because one thing that Dad would do, like back in the Westerns, The only place that had a TV was my Aunt Betty's house because her husband was a tree faller and they had lots of money. So they had the latest of everything, carpet, the whole thing, So we would go over there and lay on the carpet and watch, what's his name, that wooden tooth guy.
Wooden tooth guy?
Yeah. John Wayne.
John Wayne had wooden teeth?
I don't know. It's
Sure. Okay.
It's a joke.
Okay.
I'll tell you that one another time. So anyway, we're laying there, watching this. And my dad would watch TV with us. And so the Calistoga wagons would circle in a circle, and they'd be pulling their guns out. The hero of the show was fighting and shooting at these Indians. And they go, whoa, 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 going around. And we go. And so when they shoot an Indian, we go, get him, shoot him. And Dad said, they just shot your grandpa.
Oh, my God.
Oof. And we're going, what? And we'd yell for another guy to get shot and go, there went your uncle.
Oh, my God.
And it made us think about it.
Yeah.
What are we saying?
Yeah.
We're asking the white people to kill us because we're the Indians, right? And so those conversations we'd have later. Well, so when I'm having this conversation with my dad about hating, right? And so he said, yeah, you have a right, Sheryl. I agree with you. He said, but the thing is, if you don't get control of that hate and anger in your heart, it's going to consume you. Because hate is a human reaction to situations. It's normal. People go through this all the time, but you had to decide. One of the rules he had was it's not so much what happens to you, it's how you deal with what happens to you. Yeah. Because we have a thinking mind and a heart that can feel. So that's why we're different from the animals. So he said, yes, you have a right. He said, but you got to know this is a normal reaction. So look at this. He goes, okay, so you want to hate white people because they killed your people? Yeah, I do. And he goes, well, then what part of you are you going to hate? Oof. I said, what? He goes, you're half Dutch. Because we study our family history. We know when they came through Ellis Island. We know all these things about the migration over from the west to the California, all this stuff. And so I took a deep breath and I said, well, we're the only people in the whole world that have to tell who we are. That you have to prove that you're an Indian. If you're Chinese, you don't have to show. If you're black, you don't have to. If you're Mexican or white, you don't have to. We're the only ones. I said, so I'm full blood. He goes, Sheryl, you're not full blood and you know it. I go, I can say that because if I want to sound full blood, I can, because I can put anything I want on that paper. Well, the thing is, Sheryl, the truth is the truth. You have to accept that you are half Dutch. And so he goes, so look at it another way. If you hate the people because they killed you and you want to kill white people, then what makes you any different? Hate is hate. If you have hate in your heart for someone else, then you're the same. You're calling the kettle black, You can't, how do you see that? And so then he goes, okay, I want you to think about it. You don't have to answer me right now, but go think about it, pray about it, come back and we'll talk again. So I did. And I thought about it. I prayed about it. And, the old man was right. So when we came back together, we talked again. He goes, okay, so what'd you think? I go, well, I guess you're right. You have to admit when your parents are right. Sometimes it bothers you. But it was true. And so then he went on to say, Sheryl, one thing that separates humans from animals is our ability to think, reason, and to feel. Dogs, they'll act like they can. They'll be your best friend. But do they make decisions about things? No, they don't. Do they create things? No, they don't. They live more by innate nature of their genetics and their DNA, right? Whereas we have the capacity as humans. So the thing is, he goes, it doesn't matter what color your hide is, he would say, your skin. It doesn't matter. He said, which one of us got to choose who we're going to be born into? Yeah. Who said, I think I'm going to be born in black so I can be a slave? Who said, I want to be born into being whatever race you are? Who got to choose? That was just when that egg and that sperm united and you became something, right? A human being. So we didn't get to choose that. But why do we make a big deal about it? We're still human beings. So that's why, and when you look at the Natosh, why we even have it, the Earth Renewal Ceremony, Sam Lopez said we would sing and dance from dusk until dawn for 10 nights. Wow. And during that time, there would be a song, a dance, a song, a prayer, a story for 10 nights. He said by the time that 10 nights came around, they would have prayed clean around the earth for everything. All humans, all life, the entire Mother Earth. So was that just for us? No. It was for everyone because we're humans. So at that point, when I was 16 years old, I learned this. And I call it schizophrenia, cultural schizophrenia. It's like you have to come, every person who has any kind of identity issue needs to at some point address those kinds of concerns of who you are as an individual. What makes you be you? You can't go around all the time on your shirt tails of your parents or somebody and point blame and say, oh, well, it's because they did it. No. What did you do? How did you learn from the situation? So that's how we were taught to think. Well, Sheryl grows up thinking everybody's like this. No. But I'm an internal optimist. So one reason why I like being the director of the education department is because we have an opportunity to have real input in the lives of our community. We live in a blended community. There's no such thing as a full-blood anything anywhere, and why do we have to worry about that? I like to look at myself as unracist. It's taken time to do that, not to see someone for the color of your skin, but what's in your heart. Because my dad told me that day, he goes, doesn't matter what you are, it's what's in here. He called it a heart condition. What kind of heart do you have? Do you have an evil heart that wants to hurt people? Are you a person that wants to share and love one another and get along, cooperate? So what kind of heart do you have? So what I do, I spend my life trying to find what I call other briquettes. I give this story. Okay, if you take a pile of briquettes and you stack it up, light it on fire, it'll burn hot as they're joined together. If one rolls off to the side, what will it do? It'll burn out possibly. You scoot it back in the pile and it ignites again. So what I think we need to do is find those people that have that warm little briquette in their heart and find them. Birds of a feather flock together. Those who have a like mind will find each other. And that's what it's all about, growing that community. And like I always tell everybody, my dad taught us all this stuff, is that our community is only as good as we make it. Our school is only as good as we make it. Our radio station is only as good as we make it. Our education department is only as good as we make it. But it doesn't get handed to you on a platter. You have to do something to earn that. And that's where I am really keen on what we're doing right now in the Youth Services Division. You know, an example most recently that's developed is we have a book program. And for me, I was taught in giving someone a hand up, not a handout. And I was also taught there's no such thing as a free lunch. Even if something looks like it might be free, that you didn't have to pay a dime for it, somebody paid for that. Somewhere along the line, that just didn't appear so you could take it. It was some way it got there. So when we look at having developed these skills in youth to appreciate things, my dad taught us a long time ago, he said, if you go give kids everything they want, they're not going to appreciate a damn thing.
That's right.
And they don't. And so for me on these books, because I love reading. If I could have time to read, I would read. And I do have a lot of books. I'm one of those weirdos that has books. And I even do Audible and everything, you know. Nice. So, but my point being is that children today, even what we're finding out after COVID, I knew personally COVID really affected me. Being in shutdown for 2 years is a long time. So when you look at these young children, whatever, if they were born during COVID, made during COVID, lived through COVID, they are victims of that circumstance. These young children we have right now, some of them coming through Head Start, in our Howland Head Start, they are, and I'll tell you this, but all they saw were people behind a mask. They were isolated. So whatever environment those children were exposed in for 2 years, we have no idea. There was no other eyeballs looking at them. There was nobody saying what's going on with this child's development. And most parents, they just procreate without even knowing why. It just feels good. Oh my gosh, we're having a baby. I mean, you know what I mean? Nobody thinks about it, of what the responsibility is to raise a child. And so we in education know that it's the parents' responsibility to raise their children. What we're here for is to enrich this experience, help you learn how to become a better parent, so that child can have a second chance of doing whatever, or a real chance of doing anything. Just
passing on the sort of raising that you got, right?
Exactly. And trying to do it across the spectrum of who we are as a people. We have people from all walks of life that come that are tribal members. Because we suffered such atrocity historically, right now in Tolowa Dee-Ni Nation, you become a member by showing your lineal descendancy. If you can show your lineal descendancy and going back to someone, right now we can trace our genealogy to about 1790.
Wow, okay.
When there were just Dani Wayot names. There were no English names. And if you tell me who your grandmother is, grandfather, I can tell you who you come from. Because in our family, that's what we studied. When we sat down at the table, we can draw out a genealogy chart for you to show how you're connected to someone else.
Oh my gosh!
Like first, second, third cousins. One first cousin, once removed. I mean, we can do all that because that's what our parents taught us. And my dad always said, "You need to know who you are, so you don't marry your cousin. You do not want a baby born with the eyeball in the middle of his forehead." I mean, it was very graphic. And so not only do we have to study on the Indian side, on the non-Indian side too. Because the settlers that were here are still here. We married into them. They married into us. We are cousins with some of the white people walking around here because of our white side, you know? And so it's just, but the thing is, it boils down to being human. We need to know our family history just so we know those kind of things of who we were related to, and it also actually makes you feel like more of a community when you know, and how small the world really is. It's like, oh my goodness. And so we had to go outside to find our spouses because we could. I married every Tolowa guy I knew, you know. I mean, and yes, so that's another story. So the thing is that these goals or ideals need to be instilled within the next generations. And we have from my family, whatever decision you make affects the next 7 generations.
Wow.
So how you view things. For example, in the 60s, during the Eisenhower administration, they got the bright idea in Congress to go ahead and set up the Termination Act. Now, there's many laws that Indians have to function under that most non-Indians don't even know.
Right.
It's a whole federal law, bank of laws for Indians that have to deal with no one else in the world. And even the idea of proving our lineage. Why did the federal government want us to prove who's an Indian? Why does it matter?
But I would only assume because they feel like they're giving something to you nowadays, and you have to like earn it with your blood.
No, I mean that's a common presumption, which is normal.
That's all I have.
Except that when you look at it historically, when the Euro-Americans came across the Atlantic Ocean and landed on the eastern seaboard, what did they see? Land.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Oh, this is nothing like we've ever seen before, but who the heck are these vermin walking the earth here? We need to exterminate them. So from day one, it was extermination. So what I say is that as the Euro-Americans came across, became Americans, the United States, the continental United States, by the time they got to California on the Pacific coast, they knew how to take care of us. They made short order of us because that already had all this through President Lincoln, everyone else. Every one of our presidents was a white racist. If you don't believe me, go back and study it.
They wrote it down.
You can read their quote.
You can go to the Historical Society here and read that.
So this happened when it got to us on the Pacific coast. They slaughtered us, sitting ducks. They rounded us up.
All of this, quote unquote, lawfully too.
Totally. Yeah. This is totally with the law, within the law. And Peter Burnett, who was the first governor of the state of California, that was his decree: exterminate the savages, and save the man to spare. No, kill the Indian to save the man. That was the motto for the boarding schools. Wow. So this whole idea was to make us, quote, American, whatever that means. But, that's another discussion. So what ends up happening is we have people from all over having experienced this. Some people grew up in boarding schools. Some people were lost their parents. They were adopted out. So they never got a chance to learn. So my mom always has this notion she taught us. She said, if you don't learn what you need to learn, how are my grandchildren going to know? It's not going to just fall in their brain. You have to teach it to them. That means you have to know it.
This isn't about just you.
No, it is not. And also, when you teach, you get a second chance to learn. So when you look at it like that, and then you're also giving a gift to someone else, but they have to reciprocate. You know what it's like to teach a non-teachable person.
I know what it's like to have been a non-teachable person too. Yes, yeah.
Because I call there's two categories of people. One, they're willfully ignorant, and two, woefully ignorant.
Willfully and woefully. I love that.
No, willfully and woefully.
Woefully, yeah.
I love that.
So when you're willfully ignorant means you prefer to be ignorant and you leave it that way. You're not, you're comfortable with your safety zone. You don't want to step outside of your safety zone. You want to not challenge yourself to think a different way. See, the thing that our dad taught us and our mom was that you can learn more things. Diversity is the spice of life. But then again, it doesn't change who you are as an individual. It only helps you understand better how to communicate with another human. Dad always said it doesn't matter how many letters you have behind your last name. He said what matters is when you're communicating with someone, you can talk to them on their level and they can understand you. It's not that you have the PhD behind your last name and you can be a hotty-toddy and, oh man, I have status. You have to call me doctor. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, I mean, so it's like, no, we're human beings, buddy. We're all equal. So anyway, it's just all these philosophies that swim around, and how do we capture that to put it into a program? Back to the book one. Okay, so what I'm doing now is...
I'm sorry, I got to break in. I just have to do this. It is 7 minutes away from 2 o'clock already. You're tuned to KFUG Community Radio. We are speaking, Amanda and I are speaking with Sheryl Steinruck from the Tolowa Dee-Ni Nation. And you are my favorite kind of guest, because all I said was, so what's happening, Sheryl? And then off you go. You are a star. This is wonderful. Please continue. I just wanted to get that in there and tell people the name.
Thank you. Well, one of the things I wanted to say, getting back to the book story. Okay, so, like I said, I don't believe in a hand up. I mean, a hand up and not a handout.
Right.
Okay, so we have these books, and we've been going to schools. We've been asked to have people come in, and we have students, for whatever reason, when we look at the statistics of Del Norte Unified School District, 40% of the special ed disabilities children are Native American.
Wow.
40%.
Wow.
So per capita, compared to the population of this community, that's high. And so, I don't know if you've all heard about the Olivia R. versus the California Department of Education lawsuit. So basically, that's suing the state of California for the deficiencies that Del Norte Unified School District has had in meeting the needs of our special education and disability students.
Right.
So that's ongoing right now. We have another hearing come up in June. Well, the thing is that when you look at the population of the students who need this extra help, they're our population. But you look at the history of education for American Indians, what's it been like? Yeah. Why do parents not want to cooperate with school if you grew up in a boarding school?
Right.
Have any of you been able to watch 1923 with Marin, what's her last name? Oh, goodness sakes. It's a kickoff from Yellowstone. It's a prequel to Yellowstone.
No.
It's
is
a
that
series.
the TV show?
Huh? Yeah, it's a series.
Okay.
But it was on Paramount Plus, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a section in there where the author of the book, and his name skips my mind right now, but he has a section in there of actually showing what a Catholic boarding school was like.
Wow.
And I am so surprised. He has Sheridan. What's his last name? So he has all the screen time actually showing the brutality of what happened in boarding schools.
Oh my God.
And so anybody watching that, you have to be prepared. These are kind of movies that you can't watch if you're queasy. I mean, you have to emotionally prepare yourself or be ready to do something about it when you've watched it. But it really shows graphically how it was. So if you grew up in a boarding school and were taken from your family for 5 to 10 years, what do you think is going to happen when you return? You're not going to know the things you need to know about how to put a baby in a baby basket, how to sing to them, how to do what needs to happen as a parent, as a Native American parent, right? Or even a Canadian First Nations. So this happened across the board. This was a governmental solution to the Indian problem, right? One of the many. So when we have people coming together nowadays, is it their fault they don't know? No, it is not. They were not given that opportunity. For the grace of God, there go I. If I hadn't been given the opportunity, would I be sitting here being able to tell you this? No, I wouldn't. Because I wouldn't know. But I think and Mom always said this, she goes, you never know. She said, you have to learn it, because if you don't, who will? And if someone comes wanting to learn something, you need to be ready to teach it. If you have something in your heart that you know, then teach it. Because that's your duty, to pass that knowledge on to the next generation, because it's for our good. Wow. You know, because her goal was to make your community a better place when you leave than when you came. So that means, what good are you doing now? How are you paying it forward? How are you making our community, our blended community, what it needs to be? And that's what we're all about. And that's where I think the partnerships are coming in. Like through the education department, we have the capacity now to build partnerships with Promise Neighborhood, Title VI, NCIDC, all these agencies, including the school district, all the things that are ongoing. And so, for example, we did last year in April a teacher professional development day for the Delano Unified School District. It was our first annual. We have a second one coming up in April, and we're going to be doing it again.
What happens?
And it was wonderful. We had 70 school teachers come through our department. The education department is broken down into 4 divisions. One is the early learning, How-on-Quat early learning program, which houses the Head Start and the Early Learning Center, which is a wraparound daycare for the Head Start. And then we have the Language Culture Division, which has been the promoter of the restoration and revitalization of our language and culture. And then we have the Youth Services Division, and that's what Amanda's going to be working with us soon, being a partner with us in that, and offering direct services to our students, kindergarten through 12th grade.
Right.
Then we have the post-secondary, which then is the financial aid program, assistance program to people who are in high school still and college. So we go, and we're right now in the process on the How-on-Quat early learning program. We just got a grant funded from the Indian Community Development Block Grant of a $2 million grant to go ahead and plan an expansion of our Head Start program to include 0 to 3 early Head Start.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to be having 0 to the grave. You know.
Wow.
So there's all these things that are developing, and because I feel like, and this is why I really want to thank you guys for having me on, is the work that has been done historically up to this point has really, what I call, aligned the stars. Because never in the history, I mean, you really look at it, we are creating history all the time.
Yeah.
And unless we acknowledge the progress we've made, we think we don't.
Yeah.
But when you do, it's like, because when you're in the muck and mire every day and you're in the grind, you just really don't think anything. But then you take a deep breath and you run into somebody, you see this, we watch that grow. We see these young kids getting out here and dancing. We see them doing things like earning a book. I want to finish that story. So my idea is, okay, so we have these kids who are not reading well. Everyone knows you need to read to your children and have them read to you 20 minutes every night. It is a proven fact that if you do that with your children, they will become readers.
All sorts of
if
benefits.
If you do not read with your children, guess what? They'll be illiterate because that's your expectation. Now, some parents might be illiterate. We have to be cautious of that. And so that means, though, we're supportive. So one of the things we're doing is in family engagement, we're having the parents come in, have their child choose a book. They're made by Native American authors, illustrators, it's all this, and hopefully stories, and have them take a book home. And we're going to have a system where they're going to keep track that they read the book, and they can borrow it to earn it.
Wow. Okay.
So then if you, at the end of you finishing your book with your parents, your older sister, whomever, caregiver, then you could keep this book. And then you get to come back and pick out another one.
Wow.
Because to me, that then will instill in that child, when you're 27 years old, going off to college or whatever you're doing, you're crying at the doorstep. However old you are.
I want to take that book.
So then you're saying, when you look at it later, oh man, I remember when I read this with my mom and dad. We got this year when I was in the 3rd grade. Look, Johnny, you want to read this book with me? I mean, that's how I want things to go on, that you can envision those things happening in the future. Because if you can envision it and you put it out to the universe, guess what? It's going to come back to you. But you have to be ready to receive it.
Oof.
You have to be in a position to say, I think, boom, I think this is what I need to do. You know what I mean?
I do.
So it's like in the timing, but still it's those partnerships. And that where the partnerships develop from a sense of love and trust.
Yeah.
You cannot develop anything unless you have those ingredients.
Yeah.
And a lot of us in America, for whatever reason, are afraid to say we love someone, because what does "I love you" mean? You know, we watch love stories about it all the time. But I'm just saying, like, when there's that genuine appeal to another human being as a human being. Mm-hmm. You're not looking at it sexually. You're not looking at it.
It's a vulnerability. People aren't comfortable with their own vulnerability. Yeah.
And it's okay. I mean, that's where I think a lot of things we have problems with in our country.
Yeah.
Because we've divorced ourselves of that obvious human need.
Yeah.
The sense of belonging, the sense of being loved, the sense of having purpose. Yeah. You know, so here we are running around, blah, 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 blah.
Because we're a hateful, genocidal nation.
Well, you know, I've really been looking at that because I'm half Dutch. Mm-hmm. And so when I study the Dutch, because I do a lot of study on the Eastern European, because that's who came over here. Mm-hmm. Well, when you see the history, what's happened in Eastern European countries over the decades, centuries, it's atrocious what they did and do to themselves. I mean, they seem to be a little more tamer these days, but back in the day, I mean, where do you think we got the neck halters for blacks who ran away, who had to have these wagon wheels around their neck so they couldn't run anymore? Or, you know, where do these things came from? Mm-hmm. Yeah. When they had these things on the ships that forced them to eat. You know, I mean, just think. I just sometimes who in the world dreamt that up? And what environment you lived in to create that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, but for me, I go back to we're human, and I know DNA does have something to do with it. But I think over time, if you start developing these other norms and values, that eventually that'll change. Now there are some psychopaths I don't think you ever will change, and we do need to be doing something about it, because even in Tolowa we had corporal punishment. If there
corporal or capital?
Capital.
Okay, okay.
Capital, I meant. And well, not corporal punishment, capital punishment is that if someone committed such a heinous crime, they would be put to death. But it would have been done in a tribunal. There would have been someone who was trained in the history of precedents of we did it this way before, we did it this way. So there was a canon of law that you would refer back to, you know, this incident that happened, this is what we did. And so someone, if they were to be executed by final decree, then they would be kneeled down on the ground with their hands tied behind their back, and there would be a big adze that they would take and then hit the back of their neck right here and kill them and break their neck.
Wow.
But those had to be cases that were totally criminal. I mean, they were something without doubt. And so when those things were done, and each within Dani land, we had major villages, mostly at mouths of rivers, and where, you know, because you have to make sure it's a place to thrive. And they'd have a head man and a named dance house in there. And then they were divided out in districts. Right now we're working on a project with Tolowa Dee-Ni Nation and the city of Crescent City, to build the beachfront park that's going on now. And so we are in the process now working on that to build the 10 kiosks that are going to go along displaying the history of Tolowa.
I was in the room when you pitched that idea at the Cultural Center.
There?
Yes. Yeah, we were covering that meeting. It was one of the big community meetings at the very outset of all of that. And you stood up at the back and said, "Hey, how about this?" And everybody clapped. I was like, yeah. So how far away is that? Where are we in that process?
We're into it 2 years. We have 5 of the first sections formalized to a certain extent. But what's really cool is Susan and Peter, I can't remember their last name, they're a company out of Oregon. They're creating the little kiosk areas with such finesse. For example, one has like the redwood forest. So we have stories and stuff going along with that. Another one has a depiction of a living house that you can walk through. Now, these are circular areas, and inside there's like an interactive board with a map. And it'll also have like sound, a video. And then, like, for example, one has the ocean, which is it's like the metal pieces are curved,
right,
like an ocean. Oh, wow. And then there's like fish in the waves, and then there's like a ocean going canoe there. that people could sit in.
Oh my gosh!
And it's going to be cool.
These are big installations.
They're huge.
Yeah.
You can walk. They're like a circle walking into one of those curled shells. You walk into, and then it's in there. Oh, it's so cool. I can't wait till we get to the point of doing another public display. Mm-hmm. I'm really going to beat the ground on that one because I really want people to come out and see what we've been doing. In the meantime, we have a Tolowa Culture Committee, which is coming together. Now, this is an interesting thing. You get all these strong-headed people together, and I can name a few right now, trying to come to consensus. It's a rather interesting thing. It happened. But, the whole point is that we're coming together as a community and holding hands and developing these partnerships that are going to live beyond us.
Mm-hmm. That's the point, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I can't say. Okay, let me do this. It is 7 minutes past 2. You're tuned to KFU.
So sorry.
No, it's okay. KFUG LP Crescent City. I got to get that out by law. I guess for some reason people still care about that somewhere. And we're speaking with Sheryl Steinruck down here, director of the is it the Department of Education, the Education Department? Mm-hmm. Just one of the Tolowa Dee-Ni. I am so happy at 16 that you, with your energy and intelligence and storytelling abilities, that you chose to not hate people like me. I'm really happy about that. Thank you. I've always been.
You realize what that's done for us, but I think every person who has an identity crisis, because that's what that's called. Mm-hmm. Who the hell am I? Yeah. What am I? Why am I like this? Has to come to grips with that somehow or another. And I think that other people who oppress people, this is the other way that helped me accept that, swallow that pill. Mm-hmm. Oppression happens everywhere in the world every day. It's happened in history. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so if we as human beings decide to accept that as normal, that's when we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is rise above it and say, okay, there have been mistakes. Yeah. But then we have what's called settling up traditionally. So say, for example, I insulted you to the point that you said, oh, man, Sheryl, she's running her mouth again. I can't stand it. I'm sick and tired of her. So we go to this tribunal within the nation. Mm-hmm. The head man comes in, the law keeper comes in, all these people, and they sit around, and you take me before and say, hey, Cheryl's saying bad things about me. I'm done with it. I'm sick of her doing it. It's hurt my feelings. My family's upset, blah, 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 whatever your case is, right? Mm-hmm. So then I can offer my 2 bits if it's worth anything, but eventually I'll probably come around and say, yeah, I did insult you. So at that point, I would have to pay you a fine of some sort. Wow. Some token of sorry. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry for what I did to you, remorse. Mm-hmm. You would then accept that, and then we would shake hands, and it's done. You don't pack it around anymore. Remember that? Oh, I remember that time when Sheryl was being no, it's over now. We cleared the slate. We're done. We're moving forward. That doesn't exist in the society, especially in the American way, mm-hmm. that we have become so acculturated and assimilated into. Ours is adversarial. If you look at any kind of court system whatsoever, there might be a ruling that happened, but what happened to the feelings that were involved? The judge might decide, that child can go with this parent or that parent, but what about the hard feelings that both parents have because they didn't win the case? Yeah. Where's that child in between triangulated because these parents have bitter feelings? Mm-hmm. There's no reconciliation. And that's what's missing. And that's what I've been pushing recently, because we have to get over that. Because if we don't get over that, we will never work together.
Right.
And you'll carry a grudge for 10 years and forget why you had that grudge. Oh, wait, I was supposed to hate Sheryl for some reason. What was it? Remember that? But when you settle up, it's done.
Do you feel like you've been able, as a culture, not just you personally, I think I know the answer after this, but as a culture, are the Tolowa able to settle up in the face of what's happened to them historically? Is there another part that conference that settles things? Is there another? Well,
that's what I just pitched today, actually, in the director's meeting, this kind of scenario. Mm-hmm. And I've been talking with our attorney, Karen. Mm-hmm. We have an attorney on board. And she's already been trying to find a peacemaker solution with this kind of thing on resolution and conflict resolution moving forward. And their Navajo Nation is one of the lead tribes on implementing this process.
Really?
So I'm looking to have us come in and do training, because as a manager, as a director, 70% of my work is human management.
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to do things better. And if we don't have that tool in our toolkit, what do we have? It's the same thing of everything, the same all over, deja vu. Well, we don't need that. We've had enough of it.
Right.
So that's why for me, I'm looking at ways to solve the problems. Now, when you talk about it in the tribal way, nation way, no, we have not.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel my optimism comes out again. Being in the directorship of the education department, that's where we can impact, because it's education.
Yeah.
It's exposing ourselves to an idea like my dad did. I didn't want to hear that, if I didn't control hatred, I'm going to end up in prison or kill somebody. You know what I mean? It's like, because I never fathomed I would do that. But if you're that angry, what would you do?
Yeah.
You might. And I could tell more stories about it. I know we're probably out of time. But my whole thing is that until we come to grips with who we are as a human and accept each other that way, we will always have these things. I think it's when we draw the lines of skin color or status quo, what income you earn, or what kind of house you live in, or car you drive. I mean, to me, those are things that they're not what's important altogether. It's like, what kind of values do we instill in one another to know that you have trust? And that's a real hard to gain, something to gain, which I think is what you're asking me on the nation level.
Yeah.
Can we trust the government? Hell no.
Right.
Have we ever tried to trust them? Yes. Did we get led down the road?
Right.
Oh, yeah. But by the same token, we're not idiots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have human intelligence, we have human emotion, we have intellect that can figure it out. But the problem is the buy-in. Who, even in our own nation, who's buying in? Who likes to get on Facebook and gossip all over everywhere? It's fun to do, because whatever you say on Facebook, would you say to them in person? Probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can hide behind this old little mechanism here, this device, and say whatever I want, because I'm a big guy. But if for me now, Sheryl says something, I can say it there or to you.
Right.
To me, I'm not going to say something about someone that I'm going to regret, because I hate that feeling regret.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, Thumper, his mom said, "What'd your dad tell you this morning? Don't say anything if you don't have nothing to say." No, if you have nothing good to say, I mean, I go clear back to Disney movies. It's like, yeah, Thumper's mom was right. What'd your dad tell you?
You ain't got nothing nice to say. Don't say nothing at all. You got to do the foot motion to go along with it.
And I love that. Yes. And so what I do is I go to bed at night with the situation on my mind, and during the night sometime I will wake up in the morning with an idea. Oh, okay. And you have to be ready for those times, though. That's why I live alone. I'm very eclectic. I mean, I have a family that I'm around all the time, but I have my own domicile. If I want to get up at 3 a.m. and type, I will. If you know what I mean? It's like, so I'm very independent that way. Not lonely. I am never lonely. And I think that a lot of it has to do with what your mindset is, and what you've been allowed to feel and know. And some people have been hurt on purpose, and those scars are deep. And so it's hard to work through, but I think I'm an eternal optimist. If we keep offering programs that offer healing and levels of trust development, that we can get there.
Wow.
Especially starting with the kids.
Right? Exactly.
Because that's where you build on.
That's Sheryl. I can't thank you enough for coming on today and talking the last hour. This has been amazing.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. It's wonderful. It's been inspiring to hear. Is there anything else that the community, that our listeners, that you'd like to share with them? Well,
we do have a general membership meeting coming up this month. And it's really it's a nation-only attended program, but it's going to come together for all of us to kind of showcase what we've been doing throughout the year. We do it every year. And at that time, we will have nominations. There's 3 openings on the tribal council right now. And so people will be nominated, and our election is in May, the third Saturday in May. So we'll have 3 new or 3 incumbents elected back onto a 7 panel member panel council. And right now, the council we have had for the last 3 years has been excellent. We have probably made more strides in what we're trying to do as a nation by having unified leadership.
Yeah.
It really is important. When you have distension amongst the leadership, that's when things fall apart. But it's a political thing. Nations are actually political entities. They're not racial, supposedly. And so we are here because the Congress says we can. They have the plenary power to terminate us at any time.
Wow.
But I don't know how that would happen in this day and age. Without another insurrection at the White House.
Oh, gosh.
I shouldn't say that.
Well, if that were to happen, I think Delaware County, just everybody, we'd all suffer. So, yeah, that wouldn't be a good thing. That would not be a good thing.
It's just, I think we got a lot of progress. I'm thankful for you inviting me to come today. And, I love doing this kind of thing. And I appreciate the opportunity to have the exposure for Tolowa Dee-Ni Nation because we are doing things. We've made a canoe now that we have not had a redwood dugout canoe in 160 years in our nation.
God. Wow.
And we're close to finishing that. That will be on display.
Was that the one they were working on this summer at the up on the river there?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're going to go back to Tum Chama Day again. And we're going to hopefully showcase the new one. I mean, the one that's finished. And then we have another one that youth are going to be working on.
Wow. That's amazing.
So that's happening too in June. And like the partnership we have, the parks. It's been absolutely gorgeous, wonderful. We have wonderful interpersonal relationships with the employees.
Right.
And it's something that's long-standing. Victor was probably the most progressive-minded superintendent we've ever had that helps set the stage. And that's what really is cool.
Yeah.
Now, what you mentioned also something about a documentary having to do with the successful attempts to keep the language alive.
Yes, what we did is our language department contracted with Humboldt Cal Poly Humboldt.
Yeah,
I went with Humboldt State University.
Yeah.
Humboldt, and within their filmography department studio, put together about a 38-minute video. And it goes clear from the very beginning. You'll see old footage from Tom Parsons all the way up to the present time of where our language is right now.
Wow.
And
so, it wasn't that long ago. It was on the brink of extinction, wasn't it?
Totally. Well, we still are, actually.
Really?
Lauren Bauman right now is our only second generation speaker.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so we've been, trying to revitalize for years now. And our language department is looking at, they had an invitation to various locations to showcase this movie that we're looking at. And then also they've been invited by New Zealand to come down there again. We went a few years back to our language department, went down there and to New Zealand. They are the pace setters for revitalization of language.
Really?
And so some of their things that they do to revitalize their language have done, we've incorporated here, vice versa.
Wow.
And it's amazing to me, like when you get into linguistics or language development across the board, which other nations are doing that?
Yeah.
And it's just a whole nother subculture. Just like our son and Cindy, our Darla, have been involved in the marine stuff historically. And J-Tuck, now that he's on the council, still is invited to Canada and Washington with all those tribes and the Hawaiian natives on who helps take care of the Pacific Rim.
Oh, wow.
Of the waters, of the ocean. And the caregivers of the world are all over. It's just amazing when you come together with these indigenous populations and how the mindset's the same of caring for Mother Earth.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's nice. And it's really good. And those kind of things are positive things that make you feel good. It's taken work, but it's worth it, because I always said, if it doesn't take time and energy, maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Right. So the documentary you mentioned, is there a way that we can watch that?
Well,
that we can see this?
What I want you to do is contact Marva Jones. She's our Language and Culture Division Manager at Tolowa Dee-Ni Nation, and she can help work with scheduling, say, a showing. One of the things we're looking at doing right now is partnering with Critz School, and maybe one night showcasing that video, the language video, as well as the one with the youth from American Indian Film Institute, as well as the Coyote Dancing with the Stars. So we can invite the public to come, maybe 1 or 2 nights, because it's not that big of a auditorium.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty big, but if we do it right, we should have at least 2 nights of showing there. We just want to do it for free, have people come in and look at what we've been doing. And so that'll be upcoming. Hopefully in the summer, we'll get it set up to have when there's an open weekend or something at the school for that to happen. But we want to work on things like that so we can let the community know, you guys are part of this. Tolowa Dee-Ni Tolowa language has been the longest taught Indian language at Del Norte Unified School, at the high school. And Yurok is taught there now, which is wonderful. We have some great Yurok teachers out here. We have learners. I mean, it's just been really nice being able to have been the forerunner to some of these things that brought things along after, like with Tom Parsons with the Unified alphabet. No one uses it anymore. None of the northern tribes use that alphabet. We've adapted our own lexicons, and it makes them more keyboard friendly. So you can actually text and type and all that, whereas the Unifon was one single symbol per sound, and they were very unique and looking symbols. So it would make it difficult to recreate those products. But now we can. We're looking at doing apps, language apps. We're doing all kinds of different things. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That is really exciting to hear. I love language. So yeah, that's a terrific thing. I'd love to see that documentary too.
And so one thing I do is, if I know your last name, is there a translation? Where does it come from?
I love that.
Because that shows your roots
Yes.
of who you may be as your identity.
Right.
And the surprising thing is a lot of people don't, because in America we really don't value that, because we're American, and yet where'd you come from? I mean, back in the day you did come from a clan or I don't know, what do they call them?
A village, a tribe, a family, unity.
You did. And, we've lost a lot of those ways, but I'm thankful for those of us that hang on.
It gives me hope. Like you were talking about, going to New Zealand and seeing the overlap in the common ground about celebrating the earth and being an eternal optimist. Like that is so affirming to me to know that you can go across the globe and talk to someone else and swap notes and be like, there are universal truths.
It's that a birds of a feather flock together. It's finding that warm spot.
Yeah.
I call it a heart condition. You can tell people, like Dad said, if a dog doesn't trust somebody, you better take a second look. If you get a notion about something and somebody shows you who they are, believe them. I mean, that's one thing. But then again, my mom always said, well, there's always the good in somebody. You know what I mean? Yep. But it's just who we are as a people, and what are we doing here in Del Norte County to help grow our community? How can we improve it? How can we enjoy the pristine beauty, as well as make a living here? Because I tell everybody, we're going to live and die here. We might as well get along.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful sentiment. Sheryl, thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
I want to talk more with you off mic too about Redwood Voice and things we can do to amplify each other. And then anytime you can find the time to come back on and speak more, I'd love to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll look forward to that. Now that we see this woman over here smiling across the way, we might be able to do that a little more often.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Shu'ashininla. And then the last word is ashtu. Ashtu, we don't say goodbye. We say see you later.
See you later. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Sheryl Steinruck. We have recorded all of this. It will be posted online and you can listen to it. I will listen to it again too, because there was so much going on.
I never know how I sound.
No. Well, now that's what we can give back to you. Is you can get
that. All right, my gosh, I said that. My family will say, Mom, you didn't talk about that, did you?
Del Norte Reads is a free literacy program that works in conjunction with the Del Norte County Library District to promote